One more dopamine, please. I will have another. Thanks for tuning in for the ReMinders podcast. So this episode definitely has a pretty mellow feel to it. Definitely not a caffeinated Monday morning energy by any means. We recorded this yesterday. So it's a Sunday afternoon, sipping some tea, getting into a little bit of a meditative space, kick off the episode with a brief meditation. And I have found that when I do that at the start of episodes, it does sort of set the stage for a more mellow, grounded episode, which I think is beneficial. In this case, it did feel like a little bit of a slower tempo, sort of just grooving along. We weren't even sure if we were gonna release this. It was more of just a exercise and just doing it for the fun of it. The topic that we sort of circled back to a number of times throughout the conversation was just looking at media and talking about the role that media plays, the ways that it influences people, and sort of orienting into, why do I create and engage with media in the ways that I do, through this podcast, or the music that I make, through the media that I consume, what roles are all of these playing? Like, what is the function? What's the why behind our actions? And we get into that from various angles. I decided to name this media mirror just to sort of point at that, this echo chamber phenomenon with social media, but also even deeper, and just again, how media and the stories that we tell shape our personalities and shape the ways that we move about the world, and eventually coming to terms with how can we be more conscious and active participants in that process. So that's the sort of idea there. There's just something that I think about a lot. Obviously, it was really the intention behind creating this podcast in general, making an attempt to create some positive ripples in my life. And specifically, I just released my first album, Solati. So, that's sort of in my mind too, just released this album, been making these podcasts, I always come back to just taking stock of my intention, which is why am I doing these things? Because, of course there is the ego level of it. There is with any artist or any person that puts themselves in the public eye in any domain, there is some level of looking for validation or feeling that we have something positive to share, and wanting that to be reaffirmed. We may think that something's a positive thing to share, but then the world may give us feedback that it's not, you know what I mean? So it's just I feel like I'm constantly sort of reorienting myself into is this worth sharing? Am I sharing it for the right reasons? That type of thing. So I just put out my album Solati. So this has been a long time coming. I think the writing process for this started in 2017. So I, probably finished writing it by 2019, I would say, and released the first single, Soul Ray, in October of 2019. So yeah, it's been years that I've sort of staggered the releases. I broke it up into 2 EPs, and so that first EP, Sola, which was subtitled the Extroverted EP, is more of the external type of songs, the more heavy hitters, more guitar-based tracks. And, even when I released that was the summer of 2020, I was a little conflicted about it, It was sort of an awkward time to be releasing something that the genesis of was in a different energy than the atmosphere that I released it in. I mean, we all remember the atmosphere of 2020, specifically the summer of 2020. There was a lot of unrest and just general suffering and disconnection, and all this stuff was a lot more prevalent in the surface of the mainstream than it has been, at least in my lifetime. And so, I was just sort of feeling awkward about how the content of Sola, and even now Sola T, was intentionally, like I was saying before, like I do want to share things that are intentionally forward moving, that are life enriching, or positive messages, positive programming. And it felt like an awkward time to do that, just like being a privileged white dude just releasing like a super bright, airy-fairy type of collection of music. Like, I had my insecurities about that, and still do to a much smaller degree. But still, there's those like social dynamics, and there's also just like art business dynamics too, of like, how do I get my music out there to the people that would legitimately resonate with it. I don't want to force feed anything that I make into anyone's field or experience, but I do feel that this has resonance, and I know that there are people that do want to resonate with this music and the podcast and stuff like that. So, just orienting myself and like the why do I create media, why do I create content, why am I an artist, and then how to do it well, So that's basically the genesis of this conversation. And then at the end of the episode, we're talking about Kara's idea of starting a book club through the Discord community. So, that was just on the conversation of how to bring these ideas into life, and how to, connect with community and actually engage in community building through these ideas. So yeah, if you aren't on our Discord server yet, I've added the link in the description and in the comments. And if you don't know what Discord is, it's just an app that's basically a smaller scale social media. So there's threads, there's forums, there's voice chat groups. It's essentially a third party host for micro communities. So we have a server that we're hosting. And yeah, just a place that we're trying to build up, trying to get some genuine conversation and connection brewing over there. So if you're looking for that and wanting to resonate on that level, come join us. Cool. So like I said, we're gonna kick off with a little meditation. So if you wanna bring yourself to a place where you can center in and melt into the moment. Let's tune in through a few deep breaths. Maybe a double breath. Just let it out. Deep breath. Then another short breath to the full capacity. Just let it out. Just beginning to notice the noticing. Noticing if any thoughts or any feelings are rising to the surface of our awareness. Putting on pause whatever we've been focusing on up until this point. Noticing what's left. And what residually wants to come back up. We're not trying to quiet our minds, just practicing focus rather than getting swept away into the energy of identifying with what we're thinking or feeling. Just exercising the muscle of retaining awareness of what's rising and falling in our field of perception. Putting on pause the dream of becoming more and more, becoming older, becoming more skilled, wiser, whatever the flavor of the trajectory of our life currently is or could be. Just putting all that on pause to come back to simply being whole in this moment. We're usually so enchanted by the story that we don't have all that we need or want. There's still pieces to uncover. To fulfill the puzzle. But we can take conscious moments of coming back to the experience of being fully here and whole in the holy moment. That's holding all of the becoming, the moment that's holding all of the dreams and realities. And the deeper we go into that, and the more we practice going deeper into the whole moment, that's when the quiet comes. When the thoughts quit trying to catch our attention. Because we're already here. And we embody the knowledge that there's nowhere else to be. So let's bring that presence into the rest of the moment unfolding in this day, this week, this year, this lifetime. Let's keep coming back to that wholeness. And keep practicing it, because it's a skill.
Was there a song that you were teasing on in there?
Teasing on?
Yeah. Were you playing something, like, specific?
Musically or lyrically?
Musically. Sounded like something.
It's probably just the pattern I gravitate to on these types of things.
True.
You can't pinpoint what you're hearing. Anything particular come up?
I was very aware of my body. It's like how tight and sore my back is.
Were you able to create any space between it?
Yeah.
Like physically or emotionally or spiritually?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I was kind of able to take a step away from it, not quite be so irritated with the soreness.
Detach or dissociate from it
Yeah,
in a certain sense.
yeah,
I feel like we need a positive connotated word that has the same meaning as detach or dissociate. Both of those feel negative.
right. Yeah.
Nothing comes to mind.
Yeah, I guess maybe we just need to work on our own neutrality of those words.
I mean, I feel pretty neutral about those words. Just when I say them, I feel like they're not going to be received with the same
I see.
neutrality. I was thinking of adding that to the ritual of the podcast, so to speak. Stealing a scene from waking life and doing a holy moment. And also sort of stealing what Ramin does on his podcast. He'll do like 10 seconds of silence. It's not like specifically prompted as being like a meditative 10 seconds of silence.
Right.
It's just like,
Is that in the beginning
Find
or
out.
the end?
it's wherever it comes on
Just wherever. Okay.
for Ramin's podcast. The rainbow, what is it called? Rainbow
Rainbow Brain Skull.
Brain Skull. Yeah, Rainbow Brain Skull Comedy Hour. It's kind of a tongue twister. Rainbow Brain Skull, after they think about it.
Rainbow Brain Skull.
It's a little bit of a...
It's a mouthful.
So something I've been thinking about is how it feels like one of the last things we need is more content on the internet. Which is to say, like, art, you know, it's kind of crazy that those are one and the same now. And obviously, they're not,
Yeah.
but they
I
kind of
guess-
are.
So it's like all art is content, but not all content is art.
I'd say all content is art. I think art is a word that we have used to mean a specific type of art, a specific type of creativity.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think there's a broader way of seeing the creative process and different types of being an artist, you know. Like there's conscious artists, there's also like just subconscious art, you know?
Yeah.
Just comes through, just flows, or specifically sitting down to facilitate a flow.
I feel like art's kind of a connotated word for me. Just like
Artist or art?
art, just in general. Just like, I don't hear somebody like talking about their art or something, and it's just like, I don't know, it makes me think of like people making fun of artists for being like artsy fartsy and like living on a different plane, not quite living in the 3D reality that is seen as an ideal.
An ideal? By who?
And people who shaped the world that I grew up in.
The general impression was that artists are what? Not grounded, so I said.
Just that artists live in a different world, and it's not feasible for everybody to do that.
Yeah, it's such a funny program because, like, first of all, we all rely on artists, especially if we're going to broaden the definition to include any innovator or any creative person at all. We rely on that, you know. And if we were all working jobs that we didn't love, or even if we were working jobs that, you know, were entrepreneurial pursuits, like, we all need some levity and some breaks from that.
Yeah.
And I mean, shoot, the news these days is art. You know, they're basically just fabricating ideas of how to relate to the world.
Right.
Just as we are. I mean, I don't know that we're fabricating a way of looking at the world. More so trying to lift the veil in a certain sense to see how we're all programming ourselves in different ways, and we can do it consciously in life-affirming patterns, or we can let it continue to happen unconsciously and mostly the opposite of life-affirming patterns, you know, the ones that keep us in a loop of judging artists as being artsy-fartsy, while also, like, in the shadow, there's a desire, right? Like, we all kind of wish that we could live the bohemian lifestyles of the artists that we do admire or enjoy, even if we don't allow ourselves to admire them, you know?
Yeah.
But most people do.
Right.
I mean, celebrity worship is a huge aspect of mainstream consciousness, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like in the shadow that and that's part of probably why there is some sort of judgment in the way that most people, or people like that, see artists as pretentious or whatnot. So it's this very weird, like, sort of insane threshold of, like, once you cross that, like, you're a crazy person, you're an artsy-fartsy, crazy, pretentious person until enough people are like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Can I give you some money to do this more often? And they become essentially gods of culture, where people worship celebrities. It's kind of weird. But not just that, not just like the adoration, but also the influence. That's godly too, you know. Think of the way that the Beatles have programmed generations of people through their music, you know. Mostly loving vibes, you know.
Yeah.
It's just one example. Think about how mainstream music has been a part of the programming for generations, and, like, the way that we see love and think of love songs and, like, the romantic love side of things, you know, and like the codependency that's so championed in love songs. Like, I need you, baby. I'm lonely. I need my baby. All of them. Isn't that how all they go?
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, there's not like a whole lot of healthy love songs out there.
Yeah, I mean, there probably are, but they're not not the most popular ones. There's some good popular love songs, you know. All you need is love. I mean, even that, if you want to break it down, it's kind of putting you in a state of lack. You need love, you know. Not like you are love or love is. Love is. You know, it's something I obviously think about because sometimes I get into the shadow of it, of just feeling like, why do I make the art that I make? Why do I share it in the ways that I share it? And how can I share it better, you know? Because just not doing it obviously isn't the answer. But like, you know, the irony of, you know, making a recording right now, like, we don't know that we'll share this, but like, it's fun to make. It's like a ritual, you know. It puts us in a intentional container of trying to reach something worth conversing about.
Yeah.
Something worth considering. A reframe on the way that we see things, or just a celebration of the way that we see things. And ultimately to reprogram, you know, to challenge the programs that we do have that are keeping us in a loop, or keeping us on a plateau or stagnant or whatever. I mean, I can pretty easily identify those types of programs. Some of them, obviously, you know, have my blind spots. That's like actually shifting them, you know?
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Well, even like the meditation, you know, just like remembering that like things take practice. You don't just will yourself to have like, you know, strong muscles. You have to build muscle.
Yeah.
Like, any skill or any practice or any habit is a muscle. Yeah, an immaterial muscle. It becomes tangible, like it's an intangible muscle, but it becomes tangible through the ways that we behave based on those programs.
Yeah.
And those muscles.
That's the hard part, is remembering to work those muscles.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the first steps for sure.
On autopilot and just behaving the ways that we always do.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that just today is like, you know, one of the first steps is literally like just, I mean, before even taking action is noticing it, starting to notice.
Yeah.
To create those check-in points, those lucidity checks or reality checks, you know, it's like, okay, you pick up your phone, notice that you're picking up your phone. And then you can choose at some point, once you notice it enough times, then you can be like, oh, I actually do have some choice here. I can decide to put it back down.
Yeah.
You know, what am I actually picking up the phone for?
Right.
If it's just to click on an app and, you know, get that dopamine drip. One more dopamine, please. I will have another.
Yeah. And sometimes I get in that super icky loop of like being on an app and getting bored and closing it out and just going to another app and then getting bored and going right back to the app that bored me in the first place. And
what's worse is I've exited an app and then gotten right back in it.
Yeah, I wasn't going to admit that, but yeah, of course.
Like, wait a minute, this is the same one.
This is the same one, yeah.
Nah, I guess I'll stay. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. You know, something that helped us leverage making better choices for a while as we were doing, you know, the game.
Yeah.
You want to describe to the friends across the internet what the game was or is? I would like to get back on it.
Well, the game is basically just like giving yourself reward points for the positive energy accelerating things that we do, and subtracting points for the distracting and sucking
The activities that
we do.
take energy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in a wasteful way.
Right.
Not take energy, but okay. Let me reframe, if I may.
Please. Let's just go ahead and cut that out.
So the game was the idea of keeping tally of our MP, our motivation points for a day, then adding them to an accumulated, like, weekly tally after a day. So we'll give ourselves motivation points for doing anything that takes motivation. So basically just like doing energy checks a couple times a day. Like, okay, what did I do? Like, did I wake up and like immediately get on my phone? Probably take some points away for that. That's like the opposite. That doesn't require any motivation, and it takes time and energy, you know? It's not actually like giving us much value. Did I start my day with like a positive morning routine? Okay, give myself a few points, you know? So the way I was breaking it down was like, I'd give myself 1 point for things that like I expect myself to do. Like, that's just like things I should do in a day, you know? But still healthy things, drinking water, stuff like that. You know, I'd give myself 3 points for things that were like outside my comfort zone. You know, example of that would be like, I don't know, calling a friend, you know, on the phone. I don't usually do that, but I like it, and I feel like it's a positive social interaction, you know?
Yeah.
Takes some motivation. 3 points. Something way outside my comfort zone, do like 5 points, you know? So like part of that could be like, I chose not to do an activity that I have a habit of doing that's not really in my best interest. Give myself some dopamine in exchange for the dopamine that I was going to steal from the phone or from, you know, whatever else it is.
Yeah. And then we use those accumulated points to purchase reward type things, like going out to eat, or like, what else was on our
Financial indulgences,
Yeah.
or stuff like that, like going to concerts, going to shows. Like, even if we reward ourselves with those types of activities, you still might do things there that would get you some points back, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, that was the part that I think we kind of fell off, because we didn't have a super robust like reward system. You know, we were using it for like going out to eat, because that's a collective habit that we have that like probably doesn't need to be as often as it has been in certain seasons of our relationship, you know?
sure.
If we liked seeing movies at theaters, that would be one, you know what I mean? That type of stuff. I don't even know what movies are out.
I don't either.
You know?
I know the Barbie movie's out. That's all I know.
Yikes. Yeah, so Jeremy was telling me yesterday, spoiler if anyone is trying to watch the new season of Black Mirror, he said, I think it was the first episode. You don't mind if I spoil it for you, do you?
Huh?
You don't mind if I spoil it, do you?
Do you want to spoil it for all of our followers?
Yeah. This is the spoiler warning.
All right, spoiler warning.
Do I have your consent?
Sure. I doubt I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I'm kind of interested in watching it now that I know the premise.
Okay, well then don't tell me.
No, I want to tell you because it's pertinent to the conversation.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, you want me to not tell you?
If we're gonna watch
I can generalize it.
Okay.
I can generalize the idea.
Generalize it.
So let me frame it this way. I was thinking about this because I've been thinking about like, why do I make podcasts and, blah, blah, blah. Why do I make music? Why do I share music? Why do I record it? Like there's like playing music is one thing. That's a whole moment. You know what I mean? But taking my moments to painstakingly record and mix and master and remaster again, can be a drain when it doesn't feel like it's, being received in a way that, like, if I don't know who's receiving it, when all of these transactions happen on the internet, it's like, why am I putting another song into the abyss of the internet type stuff. So I was thinking about it today, is like, and relating back to what you're saying about like the program of like, be a stand-up citizen, be a worker bee, essentially, and all the worker bee virtues that we have, the internalized capitalism type of programs that we have. Name a few for me, if you will. Like, in what ways?
Name?
Some internalized capitalism programs.
One that's been coming up a lot is, at least in my life, sitting while working. Or like being seen by the customer of whatever your organization is, sitting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which goes into the general program of laziness.
Right.
Don't be lazy. Don't take breaks.
Right.
That's absolute garbage. Right. That's not health. That's not a health program. That's a capitalism program.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where we're placing our worth in what we can produce and what we can labor. So anyway, so I was thinking about how in the dawn of the AI revolution, evolution, if you will, like this is like a big jump in our evolution as a species. It's like having AI and, inevitably, I'm sure androids are going to follow suit and all this stuff, that we've seen media, we've seen stories, heard stories
like our
about
science fiction. Yeah.
And think about how many of those are like fear-mongering stories about the sci-fi version of what the future will be with robots, and it's always man versus robot. And so little do we hear about a ideal timeline with AI and robots and androids where we harmonize and create more prosperity for both species and all species and the planet at large, So that's honestly a great example of how our expectations and our imaginations are influenced by the media that we consume, and if we're all holding these scary stories, oh yeah, that was a fun movie, Terminator 2 or whatever, like, oh, super cool, like, whatever, But what's the energy of that? Like, what am I even trying to say? Like, what's the appeal? What am I describing? Like, the glamour of like action movies. Like, what do you have a word for that?
The glamour of action movies?
Yeah, I feel like there's probably a more succinct word to describe what I'm trying to get at.
My brain hasn't been doing good synonym making lately.
Yeah. Clearly mine either. Anyway, what I'm getting at is, like, even though like the flashy glamour of like an action movie may be cool and appealing and hit some dopamine stuff or whatever, make your brain go off, like, what's the underlying like message and emotion and feeling behind it? It's fear. This fear of robots are gonna try to take over the world and annihilate humanity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the predominant sci-fi story of our future, which is coming up.
Yeah.
The future is here and fast approaching. So my point is, like, this is one, like, tick on the evolutionary trajectory towards the singularity, towards that moment where Jeremy was describing it as, like, we have, like, an exponential, like, whoop, where, like, the innovations are coming in, and, like, he was kind of breaking it down into, like, the different revolutions of, like, the agricultural revolution, industrial, technological, and now part of the technological is, like, the AI evolution, that's taking us to a significant new level, and then we plateau and we kind of coast at that for a while, or even, like, create a loop, until we break the loop with an innovation, with creativity, with art, with a new vision, a new song, a new program. Otherwise we're in the program of blah blah blah, life 7.0, and then you get a operating system upgrade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like what people are talking about when they say downloads and stuff. It's like, where does that creativity come from? Where do those insights come from? It's like there is sort of something deeper and higher and whatever else that our future self, our higher self, if time's an illusion, then we have already gone through the trajectory of time, and, like, maybe that's what higher self or, like, spirit guides and all that stuff is like the essence of the future self, the glimpsing back into the stories of the past and whatever, and giving energy, like who's to say if I didn't do a practice, like, right now, of sending my past self, like, love and affection, that I wouldn't, in a adjacent timeline, would hear that as a thought or as a spirit guide message or something like that.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, let's do it right now. Like, let's send our adolescent, teenage selves some love, and that guy could definitely use it. What about you? I feel like all adolescents could definitely use some extra love and gentleness. The world is so hard. Like hard-shelled, and, like, that 3D realism, be a practical person, be this, that, and whatever, the pressure to take on the program of the worker bee, the internalized, the capitalism programs, like, that pressure is pretty huge. We get it from generational pressure of, I went through this experience, I'm going to explain this experience either consciously or unconsciously, either verbally or non-verbally, to the next generation, to our children and stuff, and then you talk to your children's children, and then, the snowball of karma and generational karma rolls down the cosmic hill. We're also getting it from all the media, and that's been another huge evolution or revolution, is, like, media. It's growing at such a faster exponential rate than, like, literally 100 years ago, let alone 200 years ago.
Let it go more than 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, when we were kids, but it wasn't like, we didn't have TikTok and, like, that type of thing. We didn't have the super, like, hyper speed access to information, but we did have, like, songs and movies, and, like, so it was on more of a you had to have the privilege of being able to have the resources to create art. Are you cool with Bella? You wanna? I just feel like your energy is, like, concerned with her.
Well, she's interesting.
She's interesting. It's chill, though. Are you concerned for her?
No,
okay,
cool. Just interested in her.
Just checking. Just getting that vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like, 30 years ago, like, you had to be able to afford going to a studio to make a song. Whereas today, you need to afford, like, $200 to $300 worth of equipment. You know what I mean? To be able to access the resources of that. So in that way, like, we're getting closer to the singularity, and this is what was sort of related to that Black Mirror episode. It's like the idea of, like, well, now AI is starting to create art. You know, like Netflix is using AI to write some of their stories and stuff.
Really?
And so the idea, if you would think about, like, what if there was, like, personalized, you know, like, movies made for you by AI, you know? Maybe even about you or something, you know?
That's funny.
And so I was just thinking, like, yeah, that makes sense. And it makes sense that, like, less and less people are really into specific artists because there's less of a discrepancy between I could be that person, you know, and where they are, where I am. There's like the lines of that are blurring.
Yeah.
In a certain way. Like, we're all creators, we're all media makers by having social media. And like I was saying, artists have such more access to the resources of sharing your art.
Yeah.
And so what's the future of that going to look like? Where basically like everyone gets to be that. And if, in a certain sense, like maybe it'll be a game, maybe it'll be a VR or something, like where you like get to be the rock star. Like you get to be that person that's creating the cool thing that everyone thinks they're cool for making. You know?
Yeah.
Like whether that were VI or like, did I say VI? That's virtual instrument. VR.
Is that something I don't know? Is it like a cool new thing?
Whether it's a VR or like some other expression of that, or literally like if androids were doing all the dirty work and we didn't have to use our time laboring to keep the machine alive and running and all this stuff, if we had more sustainable and renewable resources to have our basic needs met and stuff like that, what would people do with their time? They would be artists, right?
Yeah.
And American speaking, like not everyone is going to be like an artsy artist.
Sure.
You know, some people's art is things more physical, like playing sports or, you know, exploring the world or, you know, creating a cool avatar through, you know, working out and like, you know, being more physical and stuff like that. But people wouldn't like...
It's just hard to imagine that world, honestly.
Yeah. Did my idea translate of like that trajectory though? Of like that the distance between the average person and the artist, or the average person and the like celebrity even, that those distances have been diminished and blurred.
Yeah, oh totally. I feel like especially with like YouTube and TikTok, like where people are becoming more interested in like everyday sort of like vlogger sort of celebrity. And like I mean anybody could go viral, anybody could be the new celebrity.
Yeah, and it's almost like shorter lived, or like the value of it is almost lowered because it's more accessible.
Yeah.
Like the Beatles were so huge because they were the privileged, you know, talented white boys that they were in England at the perfect time.
Right.
For the psychedelic revolution, the rock and roll revolution, all of this stuff. Perfect time, perfect place. Everyone had their record, you know what I mean? Like when Sgt. Pepper came out, like you'd walk down the street and hear people playing the record, you know what I mean? Like people are playing it in their cars, like, you know what I mean? Like
they're playing the record in their cars.
Yeah, they would take them out, take it for a drive. And then like the radio and stuff, you know.
I gotcha.
Did they not have radio in cars in the 60s?
No
I don't
idea.
actually know. I didn't actually walk down the street and hear people playing Sgt. Pepper when it came out. But I bet somebody did. I heard someone say that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it was more of a wider circle of a cultural phenomenon, where now the culture is like these smaller pockets of attention.
Niche.
And yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And like there's positive and shadow things to the situation, but sorry to cut you off. What were you gonna say?
It wasn't like a fully formed thought or anything, but it's like the advent of the internet and like social media sites, and people can find the things that they're interested in, maybe even things that they didn't know they were interested in until they found this little corner of the internet that they super resonated with. But I feel like we haven't had like too many like big cultural moments that like everybody participated in. Like that's just not a thing anymore. Like,
unless it's the COVID or the like natural disasters or wars or whatever. I mean, it's sort of a privilege to even be able to say that. Because if we were in more of the eye of any of those storms, there have been global-esque, larger scale storms. COVID was the most global. I feel like there's been a series of storms after that, and like it almost feels like the boy that cried wolf type of scenario, where like it feels like everyone's like low-key traumatized by COVID being a global situation, that now like I feel like people are taking other things less seriously. Or maybe that's just me. It's like didn't we already put all of our attention onto something, and that was like super done in a really kind of divisive and unfulfilling way. And
I feel like we're all just like exhausted since then. Like it's just like we don't have the energy to care anymore. And
that's part of the shadow of dividing our attention amongst so many different things. So we get desensitized. We literally have a higher tolerance for information, whether that information is highly charged and an emotion or not, whether it's just more knowledge-based information or if it's emotional information. Either way, it's kind of just in the one ear out the other at this point. Unless it's going to affect you today. Not even going to affect you in your lifetime. Or tomorrow or next week. If it's going to affect you today, that's when we are like, oh, that crossed the threshold of me just not really caring. Caring. But emotionally, probably apathetic to it.
I mean, just like look at how many crazy things have happened in our lifetimes that like doesn't really feel like it truly touches us, which is such a privileged place to be. Just like, we had 9/11 when we were kids, and then the economic crashes, and just like big countrywide things that just like you hear about and hear like adults stressing about, and then you're just kind of like vibing still. Like I don't really know where I was going with that, but it's just more desensitization. Like it's whatever's happening is happening, and we still have to live our everyday lives no matter what. We can't just stop living because somebody somewhere is having a bad time.
Different waves of civil rights movements and stuff like that. I mean, do you remember when I was in 5th grade and there were like riots downtown? That's what they called them, at least. It was probably a protest. It was probably similar to like 2020, but I was a kid. So like all access I had to it was what my parents said, and their access to it was what the news said, and they painted the 2020 protests as riots too, You don't remember that at all?
I don't remember that at all. So that would have been what, like 2003?
Something like that.
I don't know.
I mean, you'd be in like 2nd grade or something like that. 3rd, 2nd grade, something. So what do we do with this information? I mean, I think it is wise to start to set boundaries of what we're going to consume and how much. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, I have my podcasts that I like to listen to. I've only got like 3 to 5 that I really actually follow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every episode they put out, I'll listen to at some point, you know?
Yeah.
But I spend, obviously, way too much time on TikTok and mostly TikTok.
Well, I just
YouTube.
learned that you can set time limits on apps. That like you can like set a, there's some sort of setting where you can be like, I want to be able to only use this for an hour a day. And then it like gives you like time updates, like, hey, you've only got 15 minutes left with this. And then like, if you try to open, it'll be like, hey, you've already reached your allotment for the day. Do you still, like, are you sure you want to do this?
It's something. I feel a little resistant to it because I feel like I've done similar things in the past and just had no problem expending the effort to say no thanks.
Sure, right.
To the point where I'm not really thinking about it at all.
Gotcha.
But with the intention of being more mindful, having those like literal reminders would, it's something.
Yeah, it's
And
something.
I know there's apps too that you can like, I don't know, Stevie was telling me about some app. I'll have to look up what it was called, but that like literally shuts off different social media apps after a certain time frame. So it's not just a timer, it's like literally it's going to get shut off.
Yeah. It's kind of sad, you know?
I mean, it's a super just baseline addiction that like
Yeah.
if you have a phone, you have this addiction.
Right, yeah, I know.
And it's beautiful in that way because it's finally leveling out what addiction is. Now people know. Now everybody knows what being attached to something and having a compulsion of something that you feel like you cannot control
Yeah.
has its grip on you. And it's because we're looking for, it's just the way the brain works. And we've either maliciously or somehow unintentionally, I mean, come on, how could it not be intentional at this point? Like we have people that, you know, were programmers for social media, Twitter, and like different things, Snapchat guys, you know, like on the Social Dilemma, like they talked on there, you know, assuming that documentary wasn't deep fake, completely fabricated information, you know, which I do have at least a grain of everything could be completely not what it seems.
Yeah.
In fact, I think everything is not what it seems. So we're playing with these realities. So like, which ones do we want to tune into? It doesn't have to be a super serious, like it doesn't have to feel like this maleficent like force that we're fighting, you know, oh, the shadow lords are trying to keep us. Are you laughing at my misuse of a made up word? Is that like a villain in a movie or something? Maleficent.
It is a movie, Maleficent, yeah.
What's the word I was looking for?
Malevolent.
Malevolent. I know that one. You know, it doesn't have to be like this, like intentionally insidious, but it is insidious.
Right.
It is insidious. It doesn't have to be the flavor of we're fighting the evil. It's just, you know, I don't think it's even helpful to look at things as like good and evil. It's like there's positively charged things, there's negatively charged things. There's things that have a ripple of harmony that bring us closer into ourself and closer into wholeness, being in the whole moment. And then there's things that fracture the moment. There's things that fracture our connection and are more chaotic and dissonant, you know? Like that. Those two frequencies are like either so close that they haven't had enough space to come back together into a harmony. The frequencies are so close that they're actually kind of competing with each other. But there's overtones that are more harmonious. But you know, like if you played 2 notes on a piano, consecutive notes, you just play them both together, that's not like the prettiest harmony.
Bella disagrees.
So what about when you add an octave in it and then it's a sus9? Those are pretty. True, Bella. True. Because it's a technically different interval. It's a ninth, not a second. Music nerds out there know what I'm saying. And only the music nerds out there know what I'm saying. Think about it like this. You push 2 keys on the piano right next to each other. It's going to sound like... Brr.
Yeah.
But if you play... So it's C and D right next to it. But if you play the D 1 whole octave higher, so it's still the note of D, but it's higher pitched.
Right.
There's more physical space between those frequencies. So you can hear, you can perceive more harmony in it, rather than being so close together and being more competitive and dissonant. They're canceling out certain... You can't hear them both clearly. And it's a perceptual thing too, you know? Maybe some aliens perceive those frequencies, but they have a wider bandwidth of perception, so maybe they see and can hear the beauty in a major 2 interval.
I see.
You know? But to us, we're hearing it at a certain speed. You know? And the speed we're running at, those 2 just aren't working together. They're competing. You want to wrap up?
Yeah. I think it would be good if we ended with like an action step. Like last week we were talking about how to implement more lucidity checks into our day, and then you kind of brought that back up, so maybe that would be a good thing to come up with and take from this. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that's a great use of seeing angel numbers. You know, when you see repeating numbers rather than like looking it up, looking up the meaning, because it's always the same thing. It's you're on the right path. Keep going. Okay, I was going to anyway. I mean, it's good. It's good to have those little, you know, God winks or just a little good vibe. But using that as an opportunity, like, okay, like, what am I actually doing right now? Like. And if you do know that language a little bit, if you are more familiar with numerology, like you see 333, you're like, okay, what am I expressing right now? Like, what am I communicating and how? Is it translating? Is it coming through? Am I communicating to myself? Am I being self-honest, you know? Whatever. But, you know, generally, see 1111. Just why not do like a check-in? Like, hey man, is this a dream? What am I doing with my time? What am I in the middle of doing? And something in my intelligence aligned with that pattern, that intelligence. It's intelligence recognizing intelligence. It's a namaste moment, you know, seeing that 1111. Some energy is meeting itself, you know?
Yeah.
So how many times you literally feel drawn to look at the clock and then, you know, it's 333 or 444 or whatever. So it's like maybe in some peripheral awareness, like not where we're actually shining our focus, but in somewhere in our subconsciousness, there's a recognition. Oh, there's a mirror moment. There's a portal, you know? Maybe that's what they mean by like portals.
Sure.
I never really understood that. Like yesterday or Friday was 7/7. They're talking about portal. I'm like, dude, my threshold, my tolerance for portal days, pretty high. We get a lot. I don't take them real seriously. You know, I mean, I think that for people that do, that's great. If it's working out for them. You know, if it has the energy of, oh, I better use this, or I'm cursing myself. That doesn't feel like the vibe. You know, but any moment we could choose this moment. We could choose this as a portal. Because anything can be a mirror, you know. Okay, so what do you want to do to remind yourself of lucid checks, little check-ins, reality checks, checkpoint?
I mean, I was thinking like even literally just like setting some timers. Yeah.
Did I say alarmers? I did.
Did you?
I don't know. Maybe I just said set alarms, but I heard you say timer, so
I thought you said timer and I said alarms.
No.
No? Check your glow stick?
Check the recording. We'll find out whose glow stick is gonna win.
I believe you.
Check out Coherence. That's what that references to. It's a really great movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the topic of timelines and stuff like that.
But yeah, I do like the idea of like making some sort of like loose goals or lists of like whatever you want to do in a day, and then like when the timer goes off, like use that as a way to kind of check in. What have you done? Yeah. What can if you can't do any of the things that you really wanted to do, like is there just something that you can do to support yourself to do it later, or like do it another day, or like can you take one step towards any of those things? I guess it doesn't always have to be about productivity either, but
I mean, whatever. It's just an example.
Yeah,
there's many ways of being productive. I guess we need a different word for it, because that is literally a capitalistic word.
Yeah.
But to be moving forward, to stay motivated, to have momentum,
to be using our time in a way that we feel good about,
to be moving and grooving.
Right.
Did I move today? Check in. Did I move? Did I move anything? Did I move things back to where I like them to be placed? Did I move my life forward? Did I move my body? Did I groove? Or did I just lose a bunch of time to the internet?
Right.
And who benefits from that? Like, who gets that value? Like, who gets that? And that's what's wild about this social media stuff, is that, like, there's a new currency of, like, likes and attention and the time that we spend. I mean, literally, it's the currency of attention,
right.
But, like, with the extra layers of likes and shares and saves and all this stuff, we're giving each other little digital social currency, but you can't pay your bills with likes. That's what's wild,
Some people can, though, which is wild.
Some people can, yes. Yeah. Not on likes alone. But if they monetize their likes, if they monetize their popularity, the attention, if they create monetary value out of that, but you have to take the steps to do that, and you have to do that well. There's people that are popular on the internet but don't know how to monetize.
Yeah.
They're different skill sets. But there's 8 billion of us, so obviously a million or a few have hacked the systems, So let's hack the systems and let's do something positive with it. Let's move with it. Let's groove with it. Like, okay, we figured out how the brain works. We figured out how to motivate the human. Let's do that in ways that bring us forward. It can be done. I feel like we need to link up with someone that knows how to program, and we need to create a new website, a new social media, a new app,
You've mentioned this.
Anyway, so let's.
And in the meantime, we can use Discord more.
Yeah, that's it.
Other things less.
Okay, yeah, that's actually another thing I wanted to bring in. Was like, so the other thing is like, how do we combat or respond responsibly to the situation at hand? Well, like spending more real time, real physical moments with our friends, creating real life events and stuff. So you were talking about doing a book club in the Discord.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have to be a physical book club, but it's still like, just giving us creating community out of a piece of media, a piece of art. Let's consume this together and talk about it and see if we can implement any of the good ideas in it.
Yeah.
'Cause how many books have you read? How many albums have I listened to that we haven't necessarily like connected with other people about?
Yeah. Or even really ourselves.
Yeah,
too
or
much,
even like integrated it.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like consumption versus
collaboration, like when you eat junk food, you're just consuming it.
Or like
but when you eat an
appreciation.
apple, you're collaborating with that other living fruit of life. It's a fruit of life.
Sorry, Belle's tweaking.
How so? I think you're tweaking. She's just being a cat.
She's tweaking.
What was she doing? She looked pretty normal to me.
She's just been like spinning in circles up there. I don't know. She's doing weird things.
She's like, what are you guys doing? It's a new pattern, Bella. You have to orient yourself to it. It's like, where do I fit in this new
Right.
organization of the stuff?
Like, it was like this last night, and then it got all put back. Now it's like this again. Yeah. So book club, what are we going to do first?
Well, we did talk about Kinevada, and I did
We
invite
did.
a few people specifically to discuss Kinevada months
I think
ago.
we need to do Kinevada. And I think we need to do an episode
I
on
kind of want to
Kinevada.
maybe start with something different. I don't have a lot of motivation to reread that one right now. I feel
Yeah.
like I have sort of, well, I mean, no, that's arrogant to say that I've implemented that book into my life or integrated it, but I think I have in certain ways.
Sure.
Not fully,
Yeah.
but you know, I put a lot more attention on my dreams than I ever did.
Mm-hmm.
Living out my dreams is definitely a different difficulty level.
Sure.
So what do you think? Kinevada or Celestine Prophecies?
I mean,
We started watching the movie and you had to cut it about
Yeah.
an hour in. We got like halfway through.
yeah.
Was it?
It just didn't feel like it was going anywhere.
It was going somewhere. It was just,
Yeah.
it was kind of just cheesy early 2000s aesthetic. And,
Yeah, it wasn't vibing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've heard about that book and I've heard it referenced many times
Yeah.
by people I respect, including you. So, like, I felt like it was like you were trying to show me that movie on a soul
Yeah,
level because
yeah.
you brought it up multiple times and like we made half-assed plans to watch it like months ago and just didn't.
Right.
I've kind of like I've had this feeling about it that it could be a life-changing thing, and I think I'm sort of clinging to like not changing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's kind of what I felt like with the movie, though. I'm like, this just isn't gonna do it justice. Like, it feels, as far as we got into it anyway, it just felt very surface level and didn't, like, the whole big thing with the Celestine prophecy is that there's like this prophecy that this ancient prophecy that they found, and they go pretty in depth into the different insights. There's 8 insights or 9 insights, something like that, and like.
I think there's 8, and they're like trying to find the 9th.
Yeah, there's 8, and they're trying to find the 9th. And there's more books too. I just found that out. It's
a series?
It's a series.
Oh,
I think
really?
there's 3 or 4. But yeah, it didn't feel like they were really like doing the journey justice at all, and just it felt like,
Right.
yeah.
Cool. So if you want to read the Celestine prophecies with us and discuss on Discord and or IRL, we're gonna be doing that.
Yeah.